This car upset GM's higher-ups so badly that they eventually ordered their European dealerships to stop selling it. But why? It was the product of American, Italian, and German collaboration, a hand-built GT car with GM running gear that performed like a Ferrari at half the price. For 4 years, a tiny company in Turin, Italy, hand-built its steel body panels, based on the sketches of a legendary designer. These were then shipped to the United States, where one of the most iconic engines in automotive history was installed. And then finally, the finished cars were shipped back to Europe and sold to the public. This is the story of the Intermeccanica Indra. There's a very specific reason why Ferrari was trembling in their boots when they first saw the Intermeccanica Indra. Just like there's a reason that Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. The Indra's story begins in 1969. At the time, Opel, the German automaker under the General Motors umbrella, was searching for something bold to rejuvenate its image. It funded the development of a sleek concept car that reimagined its conservative diplomat luxury sedan into something far more exciting. The result was the Opel Coupe Diplomat, or CD, a low-slung, futuristic grand tourer that captured the imagination of the press and public alike. One man inside Opel championed the concept more than anybody else: Bob Lutz. A rising star in the GM hierarchy, Lutz believed that the CD represented the kind of bold, emotional design that Opel and GM needed more of, in a world where Ferrari and Maserati were building the ultimate GT cars. But delays, bureaucracy, and shifting priorities led GM to quietly kill the project. Still, Lutz wasn't ready to let the idea die. If he couldn't build it from inside GM, he would do it another way. And that brings automaker Frank Reisner into the story, the man who was in charge of Intermeccanica, a fledgling automaker that had already built one Italian-American hybrid before, the Intermeccanica Italia. Reisner shared Lutz's enthusiasm for a world-class GT with European looks and American reliability. So they went to bring that vision to life with a car that could undercut the Italians in Maranello. They hired Franco Scaglione to design their new car. Now, he is a designer that really needs no introduction, but I'll give you one anyway. He's famed for his work at Bertone and his jaw-dropping Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale design, which is arguably one of the best-looking cars ever made. Scaglione had already worked with Intermeccanica, helping design the Torino and the Italia, which was their main Italian-American hybrid car. He took this new design brief and produced 3 distinct versions for this new car: a sharp notchback coupe, a flowing convertible, and a sweeping 2+2 fastback. Each of these designs was elegant, aggressive, and yet unmistakably Italian. With pop-up headlights and just the right amount of chrome, visually these new Intermeccanica designs were on par with the best of them. But it's only one thing to look like a Ferrari, it's a whole other one to perform like one. The Indra wasn't gonna just look fast, it had to be fast. At first, they tried an off-the-shelf Opel inline-6 engine that was about 2.8 liters in displacement. This got them somewhere around 165 horsepower and 200 foot-pounds of torque. I suspect the standard Opel engine was tuned up a bit from the Diplomat that it came in, but details for the engine in the Indra are kinda all over the place, and official documentation is very sparse. But the truth is, those Opel engines were always meant to be temporary. From the beginning, as I mentioned, Lutz and Reisner had a far more potent plan in place to source Chevy small block V8s, specifically the 327 that was used in the Corvette and various GM muscle cars. These engines made great power, loved to rev, and they were reliable. This entire transaction would not have been possible without the blessing of General Motors itself, which is exactly where Bob Lutz came in, as he helped broker the deal where the engines would be supplied to Intermeccanica for these cars. The Indras got either that 327 that made about 270 horsepower at 4,800 RPM and 350 foot-pounds of torque at 3,400 RPM, or they got a 350 small block, which made 280 horse and 280 foot-pounds of torque. The 327 could do 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds and had a top speed of around 150 or so miles per hour. The 350 cars were a tad bit slower to 60, but they were supposed to have a higher top speed. Again, performance specs and data regarding the engines and exact performance on these cars is hard to come by, so I'm doing my best here. It's worth comparing the performance though to that of a contemporary offering from Maranello. The Ferrari 365 GTB4 Daytona was only 0.2 seconds faster to 60 miles an hour at 5.4 seconds, which meant that in real-world performance, the difference between the much more expensive Ferrari and the Indra was marginal at best, and those Chevy engines were certainly a lot less temperamental. Buyers had two transmission options for the Indra, a 4-speed manual gearbox for those who wanted the more engaged, driver-focused experience, or a 3-speed automatic sourced from GM for more backcountry cruising. Under the skin, the Indra was surprisingly sophisticated. While many so-called performance cars of the early 70s still relied on front disc brakes and rear drums, the Indra came with 4-wheel vented discs. Its suspension setup was equally serious. In the front, it used independent unequal length A-arms with coil springs and Coney shocks. At the rear, a Didion axle with coil springs and Coney dampers provided additional stability and ride quality. The overall package was a thoughtful balance between comfort and control. And despite the hand-built body and a V8 up front, the Indra only tipped the scales at about 3,300 pounds. It wasn't a featherweight, but it was a light car for its size, especially when you consider that standard equipment included power steering, and buyers could opt for power windows and even air conditioning, which made it a very usable daily GT. Inside, the cabin was clean and purposeful. The dashboard was dominated by a full suite of gauges with simple yet intuitive switchgear. 2 bucket seats flanked a narrow center console, and a glove box provided modest storage. It wasn't lavish, but it was honest and focused. It was a cockpit built for driving. The Indras would be sold exclusively through the German Opel dealer network, and in many ways the Indra became the kind of unofficial halo car for Opel that punched well above its weight class. However, things started to go awry. In 1971, Bob Lutz got fed up with working at GM and he left for BMW, where he became the head of sales and marketing. Under normal circumstances, that wouldn't have been a big deal, but as it turned out, Lutz was more of a lifeline for Intermechanica than anyone probably thought. Under the surface, GM's leadership was very unhappy with some of Opel's policies. Without Lutz, the little support that Opel had quickly began to unravel. See, GM's top brass had never been entirely comfortable with Opel's increasingly independent direction, and they certainly weren't thrilled about an outside project like the Indra, especially one that was starting to draw comparisons to GM's own flagship, the Corvette. The Indra was basically a better, more sophisticated Corvette only sold in Europe, and dethroning the Corvette is never something that ever sits well at GM. The political winds at Opel and General Motors were shifting, and Intermechanica was about to be caught in the storm. A single order came down that sealed the Indra's fate. GM's top leadership at this point had prohibited selling GM components to outside companies like Intermechanica. This meant no more V8s, no more automatic transmissions from GM, and no more factory supports. And just to make sure the message was clear, GM went a step further. They instructed all Opel dealers in Germany to stop selling the Indra entirely. Frank Reisner wasn't ready to give up after this bad news though. In a last-ditch effort to save the project, he turned to a new powertrain source, Ford, specifically the 428 Cobra Jet V8. This motor was a legend in its own right, and it made about 335 horsepower and well over 400 foot-pounds of torque. On paper, it was exactly what the Indra needed. It offered even more power than the Corvette-sourced small blocks, and it had a ton more torque. According to most sources, Reisner managed to build 1 or possibly 2 Ford-powered Indras, although the records are unclear. That swap, though, was not without problems. The narrow engine bay of the Indra, originally designed around the compact Chevy small block, restricted airflow to that much larger Ford big block. That limited performance and led to chronic overheating issues, which was a critical flaw for the car that was meant to be the last-ditch effort to save the Indra. It was just too little too late. By the time this could have all been mobilized, the oil crisis was also starting to make it harder for powerful cars to sell. And without the support of GM's many Opel dealerships, it was just too tough to find buyers. In 1974, Intermechanica stopped the production of the Indra after making just 127 of them, 60 convertibles, 40 coupes, and 27 fastbacks. Intermechanica shuttered its doors in Italy, and the Reisners after this moved to California, where he would continue to work on other small projects with different automakers. Frank's son Henry would go on to found Electra Mechanica in 2015, and Intermechanica was purchased by Henry's company in 2017. Now, the few remaining Indras are still fast little cars even today. When they show up on the market for sale, they go for as little as 45 grand or as much as 150 grand depending on the details. But seeing one show up for sale is a rare event. The volume is so low, it's better measured in years between sales than sales per year. Overall, the Intermechanica Indra was essentially Europe's better version of the Corvette. It was a mix of proven General Motors parts and beautiful Italian design and craftsmanship all rolled up into a package that, on paper, was a much better value than a Ferrari. It just never really caught on. And that concludes the story of the Intermechanica Indra. Let me know in the comments down below if you've ever heard of this car before this video. I'd love to know. And if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps me out. But otherwise, I will see you all in the next one, enthusiasts.